Radiant team pick.
And TNC. And before we jump into the draft, I want to bring
TNC
back something that Mike
Predator.
said a little bit earlier in game draft, and you said that you'd never seen Moon on Ricky
TNC
before.
Predator.
But you were absolutely impressed.
Radiant team
So
pick.
do you think this is gonna be the doorway that opens to a whole lot of new heroes coming out from SMG?
I hope so. I like it. I think it worked out really well. Like I said last in the post-game discussion, I thought the first 15 minutes it looked really rocky, but eventually it took off, and he looked very, very comfortable on the hero as well. He may have played it before, and I just have a terrible memory. Probably has, quite frankly. I'm getting a little bit old, Matt, so don't mind me. But it's it looked great. I was very impressed. I thought he did a great job setting the tempo of the game, the vision he was providing for the team. It's the fear factor as well, right? Whenever you're playing a pub and there's that Ricky that he's farmed a little bit too much and he's got that diffusal blade up, everyone's afraid on the enemy team. Everyone knows he might be stalking you. And that's exactly what TNC felt that game too.
I was about to bring that up. I was like, he was better than most of the rookies I have on my team when I'm playing good. Like, when I'm coming up against them, I'm just like, they're pretty much Moon level Ricky, you know, everywhere, all over the map, every time. But we're gonna look at the first phase here in the draft. And John, I want to know, with the Phoenix coming out and the line coming out, where do you think mainly Team SMG are going to be heading with that line?
I think they're just going to look to give mid one a really good game once more. I think this is a really smart way of setting up for Dedusa. If you look at those first few bans in their pick, Lion means that you're not dealing with the Lion as Dedusa, so there's no mana drain to worry about for mid one. You don't have a Nyx with mana burn to burn through that shield as well, and you take care of the PL in that second phase ban. So there's no real way of just instantly bursting down Dedusa. You don't have the best control from TNC just yet to rip through Dedusa as well. And for TNC, they start off with the DK Phoenix. Normally that signals that you might want to flex your DK. DK off against Dedusa doesn't sound like the most aggressive time. You can certainly try to make it harder for her to find last hits with a Breed Fire. But that's really it. You can hold that lane steady. It's not going to be as disruptive as you might want it to be, as Dedusa can still play with a Mystic Snake. So I think it kind of limits TNC's options. They might have to put that DK mid, and because it's picked so early, SMG could just read that and kind of counteract in that mid lane matchup.
So with the TNC bans there, I see that they've banned Viper and Ricky and the Brew as well, right? Ricky and the Brew make a little bit of sense. They're those respect bans coming out. But Mike, why have they gone for the Viper ban, especially?
I think the DK naturally doesn't really enjoy the Viper because you have that natural break and there's a hell of a lot of magic damage out, and it kind of goes back to the fact that nobody really likes playing up against the Viper. So I think it's, in all fairness, just get rid of it. It's almost like the Brood Mother, right? You just don't want to go up against it because it feels very cheesy and very annoying to try and deal with for the first half of the game. So I do like the fact that they've just removed it, more so because they do have a DK, and DK does tend to struggle quite a bit against the hero, at least for now.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're looking at some more bands coming out in C. Yeah, but what do you think? Are there going to be any more respect bands, or are there just going to be more those
TNC Predator's turn to pick?
Well, they take out the Enchantress, so it's looking like they want to just kind of help out their lanes, not have to deal with all the sustain coming through. They don't have the option for the Viper themselves as they banned it out, so they don't have their own break to deal with that untouchable on the Ench, and it's just really rougher than the right hands. We saw them again. They kept trying to commit onto Afu's Ench and just never lined up. So they don't have to worry about that here. I think what we need to see is something to combine with Phoenix, or to kind of play around with that Dragon Tail stun DK. You don't really have the natural combos on hand. If this is an offlane DK, you need some sort of control spell out for your Phoenix Egg to really go off without a hitch. TNC do take that Grimstroke, so there's some potential here. Blink forward with the Ink Swell on the DK, plus the Dragon Tail stun is one nice way to start these fights. You've got the Soul Bind plus Dragon Tail for double stuns on hand, and you can kind of play aggressively here for TNC, but I like what SMG is doing. They've got the Tusk on hand with a line that's a lot of control in lane, that's a lot of aggression on lane, especially once they hit their level 6. You can play around with Finger and the Walrus Punch quite nicely here.
Yeah, okay, so now we see this puck being picked up. And Mark, I've got to ask, you know, is the puck a pretty big priority? Because we saw him get banned in the
10
last 2
seconds
games.
remaining.
I mean, it's an RML puck. Like, this is one of the man's specialties. In
5
fact, I
seconds
have to say
remaining.
it's arguably one of his best heroes, right? Probably top 3 for RML. And
Radiant
he is
team
very,
back.
very impactful, this hero. And the puck, it never really feels like it's out of meta. I feel like this hero can always kind of pop back in, and it still feels very strong going into this matchup against SMG. RML, he may have felt like on the DK he couldn't really do RML things last game around, so
10
maybe just wanting
seconds
something
remaining.
that can be a bit more mobile, can just pump out a bit more damage and be much
5
more annoying.
seconds remaining.
So I do love the fact that TNC are kind of bringing out that specialty for RML. He's obviously a very kind of top tier player, and you want him to just kind of be performing at his best. And the DK, it's a nice hero, but you don't want to limit him if you can avoid it. So I think the puck is a much better option. And of course with the DK, we know TNC can also run the safe lane DK as well as the off lane DK if they so wish.
Radiant team back.
It's still a bit of a flex pick here for TNC as to where they're throwing that Dragon Knight. I'm not 100% sure where they're going to throw it yet, but I guess it should be in
TNC
the off lane.
Predators turn to
So
ban.
the puck is, you know, almost, we actually see him with a moon on Riki, but RML on puck and just absolutely go off. Does that mean a lot of their draft is going to be centered around giving this space to the puck and making sure that he's getting extremely enabled?
10 seconds
Yeah, I think
remaining.
they're going to look to set up the puck. Like, they might want the quick blink.
5
This is their
seconds
only
remaining.
setup as well for the egg. They, once you hit level 6 in the Phoenix, you might look for the Dream Coil egg combo on hand. But the puck's not really a farm-heavy hero, so you don't necessarily need to commit all those resources to the puck. It's down to the laning matchup here for RML, as long as you can build up and hit those early spikes, hit that early travels and blink, and start causing chaos. Once you're at that point, you can kind of focus on your pos 1 and buy him space out.
Radiant
Then,
team
Mike,
pick.
with this Leshrac pick going on to SMG, what would you be expecting last game?
TNC Predators turn.
I mean, are they gonna? Well, there you go. They go for the Bloodseeker, so it looks like an off-lane Bloodseeker for KP. Mid Leshrac, I guess they could switch it up, but KP was playing a lot of Bloodseeker in the previous patch, and it is still quite viable as well. When you're into Phoenix, you've got the puck against you, you've got
10
the DK.
seconds remaining.
It's a pretty nice pick, the side of SMG.
5 seconds remaining.
Yeah, it looks great. They've got plenty of team fight, plenty of damage. They're not really lacking much on the side of SMG. So I think they've come out with quite a strong draft going into this game number 3. And for TNC, I'm not 100% sure where they're going to go with this last pick, but my guess is they are still looking for a solid kind of position 1 that can go up against that Dusa. Wondering what we're looking at here, these guys.
Do you think
It's a
maybe
bit
it's
tough.
Yeah, do you think it's maybe a case of something that's going to give them a little damage to be able to burst a bit more?
Yeah, I think damage would be an issue up against Medusa here. Again, you don't have natural mana burn. It's dealing with a shield down line. There's a
You
lot of
may now
push coming out
select
from
your heroes.
SMG as well. The Terrorblade is one way to do that. It's a hell lot of damage. But SMG has a lot of magic damage on hand to deal with a Terrorblade. They've got Lesh, they've got Bloodseeker. The silence is going to be annoying. They've got Lion Finger. They've got ways of melting those illusions from the Terrorblade. I think SMG has a lot of good answers here to deal with what TNC has. For TNC, there's some synergy here, especially once you get the Terrorize on the Terrorblade. You can combine that with a Dream Coil to get a natural break on the leash and get a good stun out along with the egg running in the background. And that could be one way to kind of manage that early on. But there's some specific timings with Terrorblade you have to play with. You have to always be aware of your metamorphosis, and that does mean that SMG has more uptime with the Medusa. Like, you don't necessarily need the Stone Gaze, but even then it's not that long of cooldown in the late game. So SMG probably have a smoother ride to hit their own win conditions, especially with a push coming out from the Lesh. It's just a lot faster than, say, the DK on hand once Diabolic Edict's maxed out.
Well, I'll let you both jump into this game, but I'm looking forward to who's end up taking.
Get into it, of course. Game number 3, Team SMG versus TNC Predator. John, I kind of wonder, I like to ask you this, but who did come out with the better draft before we do get into the game?
I'm actually going to stick with SMG here. I think they've really enabled this Medusa pick with their early bans. No Nyx, no worry about mana burn. There's no really room for an Invoker to come out with EMP. There's PL on hand to swarm her with illusions, with Diffusal burn. So it's really protected as a first phase pick. They've got this Leshrac on it to help them push towers. They've got so much magic damage to deal with a Terrorblade that I'm really worried for Gabby here. I just realized Gabby's chosen emblem on his name for the team supporter pack is actually SMG. So it kind of looks awkward when you look at him. But yeah, it's a bit awkward for Gabby. It's a very hard game for a
You need to be like a shark.
There's
You
still
need to be like a shark. You need to be like a shark. You need to be like a shark.
It's much more tight. The timing he has to play around is a lot tighter. They have to maximize Metamorphosis down the line a lot better. And SMG have just much more leeway to play this game as they want here.
You gotta love the mutual respect between Gabby and KP. Obviously, Gabby having a very tough time because of KP last game around. It just felt like every Chrono that was thrown out, you'd see the Tornado being thrown out by KP just to kind of ruin it. And there you go. They're just having a bit of back and forth between the two. Obviously, good friends as KP now getting disconnected. Here you go, that's what you get for talking trash against Gabby. He gives the call over to the telco, tells him to disconnect the internet. KP a bit of a warning before he gets back into the game. And on top of that though, on top of the fact that SMG might have the better draft, what about TNC's DK persona? They've got Davion.
Yeah, it's looking good, right? Like last time around we saw TNC with a Spectre, they had the Arcana. Maybe the key thing is to have these new cosmetics on hand. That gives TNC the motivation they need to win these games. This could be the turning point. I don't know. Like the one thing with the DK persona though, the helmet kind of makes it hard to read. I prefer him without the helmet, so there is that. But look at SMG. They're smoked up. They did this before, and if they get a good wraparound here, they've got a lot of stuns, a lot of damage on hand.
I really like this move, but this time around, Tim's, he's going to be around to make sure he breaks the smoke. They'll spot him out and get a nice chance out. And with the Earth Spike, they might have enough control to get another stun from them. And with that, they'll give the first one over to the Leshrac. Another great start out of SMG. They're giving that first one gold to Moon. It's going to ensure a very quick bottle for him, and life very, very hard for Armel on the puck.
Be pretty awkward for Armel, like the puck versus Leshrac matchup. Can go either way. You have stable wave clear on both sides, but you have to be cautious about overstepping your bounds to puck here. If an Earth split Earth does land, the follow-up damage can be pretty annoying, and of course you have to always control your lane. Once a creep wave shoves in just a bit for Moon, he can look to play with the Edict once that's up and just constantly apply chip damage, and you might find yourself losing your mid-tier one earlier than you wanted to.
We're having a look up at the top lane where KP gets a nice double silence off. Gabby already popping the Metamorphosis, and Boomy trying to be rather aggressive with the Fire Spirits, but it's like KP is going to be just fine to secure some CS for himself. It's KP going to have to be a little bit cautious every time that meta's off cooldown, but once it does wear off, I think KP should have a pretty darn good time on the Bloodseeker. Just being able to spam out the Blood Right going to be very annoying for Gabby on that TB.
Yeah, it's just not going to feel good once you're stuck in that melee form for Gabby. I think the one saving grace here for TNC is that it's a dual melee lane. So Boomy has a little bit more impact to play around with his range advantage, to play with the Fire Spirits once he gets some levels up. At the same time, Afu, he went for level 1 Ice Shard. He just tried to keep spamming that out to get hits on Gabby. And with the Turst up, Gabby, who doesn't have much HP, really relies on that armor to tank up, and once you're low, a Bloodseeker just becomes a lot more complicated. So you have to balance your HP here quite a fair bit for TNC's end.
We'll have a look at the bot lane as well. Rogi, Kim's kind of going at it. Rogi does avoid the stroke of fate just fine. Of course, you've got Bok there, the DK, and you've got mid one once again on that carry Medusa. Last game around, they weren't able to shut down mid one at all on that Medusa. I wonder if this time they've got what it takes with this new draft from TNT to deal with mid one, but it seems like they're not going to be able to really give him the space that he had last time. If they do, if we see a repeat performance from mid one, it is still a Medusa, and it's kind of like you said with the TB. It's not going to be that simple of a task to try and get through this Medusa. See what TNC does to try and shut him down this time.
I'm looking at box buildup. He did go for Dragon Tail and 2 points in Dragon Blood, so there's no real breathe fire to prevent mid-one from applying his harassment with his right clicks, clearing out the creep wave. He's playing really nicely with the Mystic Snake. And this does allow you more aggression with Dragon Tail plus Inkswell, but you're not really seeing up although Tim's chasing Raji.
He is, Raji being caught out. Nice earth spike though, and mid-one going to be around to help out as Raji does go for a nice sell. It's trapped between the creep wave and the trees and does end up going down. Very nice set up there from Raji, and it costs him a salve, but in the end, who the hell cares? He's going to be just fine.
It's a nice pickup. It does get split up, so you're not too upset for TNC, but this lane is going really well on bot. In fact, all the lanes for SMG feel like they're off to a really good start so far. Just managed to keep all these heroes in check. Gabby's not having freest farm as well. Barely above the Dusa, which is decent, but KP's already getting enough space to just hold that lane solo. Gabby, when Metamorphosis is up, to play aggressive, but not really looking to set up just yet. And every single time Blood Right lands, again, you're a low HP hero, high armor. Magic damage just makes it so annoying to hold that lane for Gabby.
Right aside, at least Armel's having a pretty good time in that mid lane of the park. Currently top CS on the board. I say Moon, that's not behind either. He's just 4 CS behind at the moment, and with this wave, he should be able to easily keep up with that puck. There's going to be a lot on the shoulders of Armel this game, right? Like, you are really requiring him to just make those rotations and set up these kills for TNC. This draft of SMG and the way the lanes have gone, it could be a very tough time if Armel can't set up these kills.
He needs to be active on that puck, especially once he hits his level 6, level 7 with the Dream Coil up. You're going to have to look for a nice pick off in the side lanes. You do run the risk of giving your mid out. You maybe want to play more passively instead. Just protect that mid, keep the lane at equilibrium to prevent a shove from the Lesh, but that just kind of runs the risk of letting these side lanes just fester for longer and just kind of give SMG too much to play with. So there's a lot of choices Armel's going to have to make. At the least, he's slightly ahead of that Lesh rack right now, 34-5 up against 26-1. So you've got that early farm advantage on hand, and that does mean that Moon's not going to look for that early push opportunity just yet.
On lane, spike is out. That DK now with the shards of the tag team, it might just be enough to get through Fox HP, pulls the snowball. Give me then a follow-up, but he's a very techy DK. We'll be able to back off as now Armel make the rotation in. He only got one with the Dream Coil, but it will give him a kill. And immediately he's back off to the mid lane.
That's exactly what we needed to see from
Radiant
Armel. It's a good
are
opportunity for the rotation. He's going to get
Dire's
a
middle tower
rune up at
is
the
under
6-minute
attack.
mark, so he's going to be topped up. The creep wave was shoved out far enough that Moon couldn't really do much for the Edict there. So the power is still standing at a fairly good amount of HP, and he gets that impact he wants early. It's not the biggest kill, but it does provide some relief on those side lanes, which TNC really needed. It's just lining up all too nicely for SMG, and it at least makes mid-one think twice about overextending in the lane, but you're still not quite stopping the user from farming there.
Or not. And now, he's screwing up on the left track, gonna make the rotation towards the top lane. That level 3 Diabolic Edict, but rather than trying to make something happen up to that top T1 tower, he'll take the stacks away just to ensure Gabby doesn't have a chance to them himself. I mean, he does watch all this, but it won't matter because he can't do anything
Radiant's
about it.
middle tower is under attack.
Immediately, Moon is going to go back towards that top lane as Arfu. He'll take over the mid lane in his stead. Again, we're seeing this kind of really a playstyle from SMG, but it does kind of just pay off for them. They are still securing the farm they want. Now top lane, Boomy, chased down by KB,
Radiant's
does get
middle tower
spotted.
is under attack.
KB not at that level
Dire's
6 mark yet, so
structures
can't
are
quite get the rupture off, but will force the Icarus dive away. That's going to
Dire's
allow
top
Moon with the
tower is
Diabolic
under
Edict to
attack.
get to work into that top
Radiant's
T1.
middle tower is under attack.
Still have Tims and Gabby around along with Boomy to try and defend this, and I think their presence may be enough. Now Moon, he's going to TP down to the bot lane. Oh, he's the only one there on the DK. They might just need +1 to lock him down. Unless Moon can land the split earth, but won't be able to get it this time. Instead, Rocky, he'll come in from the side. DP's cancelled off early, so he's already missing one here on the side of TNC, and now they're gonna lose ball. Mel, he does show up, but it is too late. They will get to work into that bottom T1 with the Diabolic Edict.
The fade ones keep you safe.
Not really much Armel can do about
Dyer's
it.
bottom
So
tower
he does get a
has
very
been
nice
denied.
denial.
And this is the momentum we were talking about from SMG. They've got such good push coming out with Lush, especially in comparison to the DK, that once you start losing these towers, TNC's map shrinks a lot more, and it expands for SMG. You get more space for mid one to field safe, you get more flash farm for the Dusa to hit those item spikes, and TNC's just in a really awkward position right now.
Eyeball does connect, but after that, wants to back off as Gabby. He's on the high ground with the meta, just ready to go. Mel will take another nice kill on the puck. Second kill of the game for him on this bucket. It's still going relatively smoothly for both sides. Gabby just barely ahead of mid one on the Medusa. It's still about the mid lane matchup, right? It's still about Moon and Armel being able to set the pace for their team. So it looks like Arfu and Moon go for a smoke up. Question is, where are they headed?
Radiant's
Might go
bottom
for
tower
Gabby, but you're
is
going to
under
head towards
attack.
that top lane where KB does cancel off his TP and now goes for a rupture. Gabby maybe stuck there. Will try to get out of vision. Boost not going to be there in time. We'll just roll the other ways. They'll go after Tim's instead. Blood right, not actually going to get the vision
Radiant's
of Tim's. He just
bottom
ran
tower
straight
is
south
under
and they
attack.
haven't
Fade
found him.
ones keep you safe.
Tim's is somehow out of there. They're still
Radiant's
having a look
bottom
around.
tower has fallen.
Korea, not gonna spot him either. Tim's, he will survive. At top T1 tower, probably not gonna be so lucky.
SMG, they really wanted that kill. Gabby
Radiant's
still
bottom
a lot
tower
of
is
space
under
here, all
attack.
things considered, but
Dyer's defenses are
one
fortified.
still Armel's here.
Armel, he's got a massive target there as Bomb. We're trying to help out with the Dragon Tail, and that should be enough to lock him down and get the damage out. SMG thought about jumping in, but there's not really much they could have done. That is a huge pickoff now for the side of TNC, and you gotta create a bit more space for them to be able to just secure that farm onto
Radiant's
Gabby and
bottom
Armel.
tower is under attack.
They're doing a good
Dyer's
job of
middle
just
tower
protecting
is
their
under
TV.
attack.
They're not willing to play aggressively themselves onto the Dusa, so you're kind of trading farm, and we're seeing mid one slowly catch up. Like the last hits are racking up, the triangle is fairly protected. There is a ward here from TNC to watch. They're not really able to do as much with that information. So I think overall you're still kind of happy on SMG's end, and it still kind of boils down to what you were saying, mid-core matchup. Moon still needs to find some towers to melt for the Edict. Mid-tier 1 still standing, top tier 1 still standing. In that sense, it's feeling pretty good for TNC to even out the bot lane push down the line. So relatively even in map control, and if that serves to benefit TNC a little bit more, considering that SMG are the one with a bit more of a push advantage with the strat.
Up shot, top lane, they've got Bok. They're very kind of tanky here to go after. They're not going to
Radiant's
just
middle
they're not gonna
tower
pursue
is
it.
under
Bok's just
attack.
going to stand there. He'll be all right. Now still bringing heroes up here from SMG to try and set up for that push, but with the Grimstroke around on Tim's, it's proving to be a real challenge for the side of SMG. Bok doesn't even have the breathe fire up, but he just doesn't need it. Stands there hitting creeps. He's fine.
It's a lot more of a passive build, so you can't be as aggressive, but that doesn't matter when it means that SMG's own moves are not really panning out. TNC, knowing Rupture is down, they've got a bit of a spell advantage here, and they're going to look for a smoke play here.
Armel gonna move on to the high ground. They'd love to find mid one, and that's exactly who they do get as the Exort does come in with the Santa with no mana shield. He will get blown up. Great setup there from the side of TNT, and you look at Gabby, who join in that mid lane, and they'll get started on that mid tier 1 tower push now with the Metamorphosis. Immediately the side of SMG, they need to try and get something done about this. You don't want that mid tier 1 tower to drop with a Medusa on your side.
Dyer's bottom
right.
tower is under
Would
attack.
be enough with the Lightning Storm spam. TNC, they get the rotations they wanted. They won't overextend. Just back off and continue their farm up.
Silence.
I think this is pretty darn good for TNC. They killed the Dusa, the one target we've been talking about. That's an AFK farming. They make good use of that ward they planted earlier on. And they're pretty much protecting Gabby. Just sort of allowed to free farm, still above the Dusa, which is not where you want to be as the Dusa. Although in terms of net worth, it's rather even in that end. And Gabby's gonna hit this spike once the SNY's up, so they just need to hold steady here for TNC's part. They could wait for the next Dream Coil. It's gonna be up in 15, and they can get to play with Dream Coil Egg. Still haven't seen the combo kick off, but you get these heroes from SMG in a really tight spot. Could be a bit awkward for them to try to counter-fight that. Maybe they could kind of turn it around if they're Leshraks in good position, but Moon only really has a Hood of Defiance to protect. Doesn't look like he's rushing it as well. So all that damage flying through, could be a bit of an issue for Moon down the line if he's caught off guard.
Certainly could. He's top of the net worth board here, Moon, so still having a great old time on the Leshrak. He said he's got the Sanj on the way very, very soon as... Seems like SMG, they're more than comfortable to play the farm game here with TNC. A little pressure being applied, although I say that top lane, they're gonna find our food.
You might wish to retract
TNC will get another kill for themselves onto Armel. It is fourth of the game, but mid one, he's gonna show up to make sure this top tier one stays defended. Was able with the Medusa this early on, just being able to spam Mystic Snake is gonna be enough to force the side of TNC back. TNC could keep just kind of making SMG run across the map defending towers, but SMG, they seem more than happy about it. They're just fine with this.
In the end, I mean, it's still space out for Medusa. They're not quite really trading objectives on either side. And again, it's a bit of a equal state for both teams. Network's not swinging out too much. Map control's relatively the same. Both cores are farming up at a steady pace. The one thing that does line up to, though, is that I feel like a Terrorblade with equal amounts of farm with Medusa, at least at this point in the game, is going to have a bit more impact. It's just down to the fact that Metamorphosis is a lot stronger earlier on. The damage boost is huge. Medusa needs 7 more items to really hit that stride. And I think as long as TNC understands that and Precious would have to be good, although he's
okay, B's in trouble, but he'll try to Armel, get the monster up, it won't matter. And meanwhile, on the other side of the map, they have started another team fight as well. He is being focused down and eventually may go down.
Is under attack.
Be able to get him. He's trying to make a chase up to that high ground of the triangle, but it won't work out in their favor. The brighter side, though, considering they found KP at the bot lane, it's just a position 3 for a position 3 trade. And it doesn't seem like either team minds playing the farming game. These even trades seem to favor both teams in their own minds.
Is under attack.
Yeah, I don't blame them for thinking that way. They've gotten massive heroes to keep farming up on. I think that trade ends up a bit better for TNC because Armel basically gets solo, SMG has to share the lane.
This is what you don't want to lose, but not mid one. It's been caught out. A nice earth spike and a Manta dodge on the Inkswell. Very, very nice. Mid one, back into the triangle. He has no mana, but he'll be all right. They won't be able to chase him there. Instead, TNC
Radiant
have to get started on that mid tier 1 tower again.
Radiant's middle tower is under
SMG,
attack.
they may not really be around to defend this one, as it'll be a little bit too challenging with Armel and Bok around, and yeah, it looks like they are going to just let this one go
Radiant's
down.
middle tower has fallen.
The whole bunch of bunches.
Radiant's
tier 1 top for a tier 1
attack.
mid, favoring TNC just a bit more. That does give SMG a nice lane to threaten every single time. They plant a deep ward here on SMG's end in that top jungle area as well to keep track of where the Terrorblade's farming. But Armel,
Radiant's middle tower is under
Armel.
attack.
Completely blowing up Rogi. The Witch's Blade just makes it so hard to get away as the line, and now top
Radiant's
side
bottom tower is
runs
under
around.
attack.
The Icarus Dive might be enough, but the Blood Ride is coming and he will have to commit the egg. Will survive, but it will cost him that long cooldown. No egg for another 2 minutes here for Boomy. Because on the brighter side, they won't give the kill away to KP.
yeah, I think you're perfectly fine with that, honestly. Like, we haven't really seen
Dire's
big
middle
eggs,
tower
big
is under
engagements out
attack.
from TNC. As you mentioned, they've just been a lot more keen on farming, maybe a couple of pickoffs here and there, but no giant team fight that you can really leverage the egg. And in that sense, just saving yourself isn't too bad of a use if you're not expecting to fight anyway. And still seeing the net for even kill board 4-7, a bit of a slower game here. as much slower than we're used to seeing from Southeast Asia, but relatively even. I think both teams, it's one of those games where it's like a spring that's really wound up. The moment it pops, either side could just have a massive lead on hand. So we're just waiting for that big moment. For the most part, we're seeing some conditions come out. SMY up on our Terrorblade means that stat resistance is going to feel a lot better, more strength on hand to be durable up front, but our Medusa's inching closer and closer towards the Axe. Right, mid one has the Manta, is about 2k away, 2.1k away from full Aghanim's up, and that's when the Medusa feels extremely obnoxious. No BKBs in sight for TNC just yet. The Gabby is going to be rushing one next, but if that Axe comes out before the BKB does, it's going to be a bit troublesome there for the TV once that Stormform comes out.
Absolutely. Mid one getting to work. Got that Aghanim Scepter. You do also have a Grove Bow on the side of SMG. I believe it was dropped if they want to try and use it, but now he'll just ignore that.
Dire are scanning.
Aghanim Scepter should be loaded up as top lane. KP getting caught out with the Dragon Tail. With the Ink-Swap follow-up, it'll be more than enough. Take him down, and Gabby just a couple gold ahead of mid one, but they are kind of just going back and forth.
Is under attack.
Top man their worth for.
Radiant structures
Very
are
close
fortified.
game 3, and of course, for either side, you don't really want to have to get top of the whole bracket in the first round of the playoff, but that's unfortunately how it's going to be, is now they found through on the task. Another kill off the back of Armel's puck. See, they'll continue to be the more aggressive team,
Radiant's
at least for
top
now.
tower is under
They
attack.
head towards the bottom tier,
Dire's
the
bottom
top tier
tower
one
is
tower.
under attack. Radiant are scanning.
Roshan is going to be open for them as well if they so wish. You have the meta up.
Radiant's top tower has
They
fallen.
can look for that quick rush if they want. What I'm more surprised by is SMG's movements. Like, they were shoving in the bot lane. Do you think they haven't taken that mid tier 1, which is something we've been talking about a long time, especially with Leshrac for Moon. They haven't found that big objective, and it's just allowed much of that dire side of the map for TNC to stay uncontested. Stable farm for the Terrorblade coming through, recovery coming out for Bot, and highly effective with his Blink. BKB's up next as well for the DK. Our Melt's been allowed to finish up his travels and Blink, so the puck's a lot more mobile as well, and he's jumping in.
He's right in, Roddy. Gonna die immediately as Arfu goes for the water spot, but the all about from Armel. It's gonna mean they can't quite catch him. He is 7-0-2 now on this puck. A classic performance from the Armel puck, of course, and
Behold!
he's gonna be a very pesky kind of hero as KP does rotate down towards the bot lane, but Armel just making so much space with these rotations from SMG. Not giving them the time of the day. Right out.
Just a hit and run for our Mel, buying out a ton of space. It forces so many heroes to try and chase him down. A lot of TPs onto that tier 2 tower to just cut their losses and maybe find some punishment, but they end up just sort of wasting time. So it's only the Deucer that gets to build up steadily in the
Radiant's top
jungle.
tower is
Now,
under
the good
attack.
news is that mid one's Ags is just about
Dire's middle tower
430
is
gold
under
off, so
attack.
not too long till that spike is up. And that is going to be before the BKBs come out for TNC, just by a small margin. So we might have to look into using that while it's still highly effective. And they are lining up for that mid-tier 1 push right now, at least. Or they were.
Back off. Very intimidating to go into the side of TNC. You know how farm Gabby
Radiant's
is right now on this
bottom tower
Terrorblade.
is under
and
attack.
I don't think he'd really mind going for a big team fight if he needed to. But SMG, they'll have a quick peek into the Roshan and see nothing.
Radiant's bottom tower
Not through that
is under
side jungle,
attack.
just trying to wrap around back into that mid lane, but who are they going to find?
Dire's
Bot is
structure
showing, but
retest.
Arnold
Your
is a
last
much
move.
bigger target if they can catch him. He might prove to be a little
Radiant's
bit too
bottom
tanky. In
tower
fact,
is
now
under
he
attack.
jumps in for a Dragon Tail. They'll get the Hex out into the wall in front. Sunray is getting to the line, but he can rush it up. He cannot run, but doesn't matter. They're down to the food. For the sake of the DK, and now Moon goes down as well. TP, he's going to try and run, but it looks like he's set to die and does.
Alright,
Really
steady
with
for
that Sunray,
PP.
just it felt like he kept Bok around for so much longer than he should have been alive. And TNC, they just got the damage out and immediately jumped. They're into the Roshan pit.
This is just perfect coming out from
Dire's
TNC.
turret
There are no
has
ways
been
for
killed.
SMG to reveal well the mid 1.
Straight runs in. manly kind of play here from mid one. Have the Aghanim Scepter up as well, don't forget, so he is feeling quite confident on this hero, and surprisingly enough, just his presence alone will force back the side of TNC.
Radiant's middle
I kind of
tower
like seeing
is
that
under attack.
conservative play. Armel was way far off on map playing around that bot jungle area. They don't have Dream Coil up, Egg's not up, the Ink's up, the Soulbind's not up as well, Dragon Form isn't remotely close, so they're not quite in fighting shape on TNC's end, and they only had a little time in Metamorphosis. So it would have been really awkward to drag that fight out. SMG respawns are relatively low at this point in the game. You could easily just run in and contest, and yeah, it's just some more discipline coming out from TNC, which is a good change, especially compared to game 2, where it kind of got out of hand just in a few spots. We were seeing some lapses in judgment. This time around, they're sticking together with a specific game plan, and it is shaping up. I think they respect the fact that mid one's pretty darn big with the Ags. They're going to have to find a solution for it, though. I think they've got some good answers, especially if Armel gets to jump in and try to immediately control the back line, maybe prevent mid one from focusing on the front before anything else. But for the most part right now, mid one, with his farm he's built up, should be relatively protected, and TNC just have to always think twice when they see him show up in the map.
But they do. Hasn't really been involved in too much here mid one, like 1 death, 3 assists, pretty standard kind of Medusa game. We do have the go ahead, so we should be going rather soon. Back at Armel on the puck, he's still 804, not dying once. The signature heroes just doing a fantastic job. Think about Lincoln Sphere as well, because that's the one counter, right? Like, you don't want to get caught out by the Hex of Rogi. That Lincoln Sphere up going to make it a lot more challenging. Be able to catch this puck and even being able to throw it the way of one of your teammates just to be able to help them avoid something like the rough shot. Quite impactful is now SMG. They're going to be the ones to go into the Roshan pit. He's still roughly half HP. Mid one, he'll get started. TNC, they should be aware that this is happening.
Radiant
have
are
vision.
scanning.
How are they going to try and fight this? With the sun ray and the reflection, it'll force them out of the pit. They're going right back in. Mid one, he wants to fight. Tag team up. Arthur going to get started. Numi going to be forced back. He out good. He went too far. Snowball though is going to save Arthur. Will buy some time. There's just no games out as well. They're right in. Onto the DK block is dropping quite low and will die. A great start to the fight. SMG are back in the rooftop. Meanwhile, Moba does end up killing off KB, but he does die for the first time this game as TNC. They are still trying to fight this one out. Moon, he'll hold the rest of the one with the he'll get the one shot done, and now Gabby, he'll go for a sumner, but he is really just stuck between all the side of SMG. It's going to go down. Bit of a panic Roshan attempt from TNC, and really just does not work out in their favor.
They weren't ready for that fight.
Moon's still going. He wants Tim's on the Grimstroke. He won't be able to keep up with him though, so Tim's is going to be alright, but they'll get the mid-tier 1 tower instead.
And that's been way overdue here for SMG. It's 24 minutes in for the mid-tier 1. A bit slow, but they find it eventually, and they have Roshan on hand. TNC, that was a really awkward fight. They had no Egg, they had no Dragon Form, they had no Metamorphosis, they only had Dream Coil to play with, and it's just not enough. Armel kind of overextending there as well is not great. He loses a massive streak out just for that kill on KP. Much bigger win for SMG, and it's to the point where it starts to get pretty scary. Mid one's building into the Scotty once more. The Deuce is starting to build up. The Bloodseeker with his Solar Crest can just really run around and pick off the backlines if you're not careful. And the magic output of Moon with a Kaya Sanj and Eternal Shroud to tank up, it's significant. So TNC's got to be really cautious and think about when they take these fights. If their spells aren't up, chances are SMG can just run you down.
Scanning.
He's smoked up. Gonna find Clock. He's gonna break the smoke, and Rocky, he's got it with the Hex out of the Warrior's Punch. They lock him down. Obok, he's got no help around him, so he's just kind of forced to die.
And your spark.
Moon on the left rack.
Dire's structures are
They're starting to
fortified.
look like they're in control of this game.
Dire's
Number 3
top tower is under
gets to
attack.
work into that top tier 3 tower, and TNC, they do not want a bar of SMG right now.
Radiant's bottom tower is
Got
under
played
attack.
safe. They are getting a bit of a chase on our melt, but he does manage to zip away the
Dire's
puck.
top
Very
tower
slippery
is
here
under
to
attack.
catch. There is some space here for TNC to try to trade that bot 2-2 for their top. And they are getting some good damage out. They've got the siege creep on hand. The illusion fan
Radiant's
coming out from
bottom tower
Trailblade
is under
pretty
attack.
nice as well. They should at least
Radiant
get this sort of
structures are
consolation
fortified.
prize on the tier 2.
Dire's middle
Maybe
tower
get the
is under
outpost
attack.
with a nice XP per minute away from SMG. SMG for their part,
Radiant's bottom
Aegis,
tower
they've
has
got a
fallen.
lot of time in it left, about,
Illusion.
I don't know, like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes left on that Aegis, so a lot of time for mid one to be protected. And going for the direct
Dire's
towers
top
there doesn't
tower
hurt them
has
too much. It's much more painful now for TNC. They still need to hit BKBs on Bach. They need that burst damage on Armel, going for the
Radiant's
Dagon build up
bottom
on
tower
Puck as
is
well.
under attack.
And that's still a long way off until you get Dagon 5, or at least Dagon 3 here during the first 10 years down. It's going to be a while longer, and TNC needs more time to farm up, but now you're starting to trade farm with a really big Medusa, and that's just never a great feeling, especially after what we saw in game 2.
Certainly not. And see, back to the drawing board, it seems like, as Gabby, he's just trying to get that Eye of Skadi up, but it's going to be a while away. Got mid one with his own Eye of Skadi coming out very, very soon, and so many issues getting into that back line and dealing with mid one. Which would be very annoying with that Stone Gaze and the Aghanim Scepter Mystic Snake. But you can play the split push game here for TNC. You do still have the Puck, who's one of the better split pushers in the game. A run right into Gabby. They'll be able to eventually find a killer as Moon is going to try and fight this one out, but silence there, and the Dream could have locked him down. There wasn't much he could have done. Of TNC trying to find a few more heroes to try and pick off, but nobody going to be around here from SMG. Everyone backs out again. TNC looked like they'll accept what they get and back off, but it's not really the prize target you want, right? Like, you really want that Medusa if you can find her. Mid one's still just not giving them any openings.
He's just playing in the back, playing in the jungle, really safe. He's always got the support to watch his back as well, so it's not the target you can easily jump, but TNC has some good items. They have the BKB on Bach, and the Ags is up on Tims. So they've got the Dark Portrait. That big farmed Medusa can turn against him, and we've seen this Dark Portrait really cause issues for a lot of teams. It's almost like a Nyx with Ags, right? Like, once you have that burrow, all the added spells you have can be obnoxious. This illusion's just really annoying to deal with, and you're gonna have to watch yourself on SMG now when it's attacked. You might want to try to commit with Raji to take it out instead, but it still is going to be a big factor as long as Tims finds the right target to get the portrait of.
Pushing here by Armel. SMG gonna start invading that Dire jungle again.
Dire's
Trying to find out where the side of TNC are and trying to
Dire's
find a
middle
courier for
tower
their
is
problem.
under attack.
Who gives the Walrus Punch over to the courier of Armel. Take the outpost back as well. Of course, TNC just completely unwilling to start a fight.
Radiant's
5v5
bottom
is
tower
Raji.
is under attack.
Trying to find Armel in the puck, but got to get the Hex off. Meanwhile, mid lane, Boomy is fine. Now Kenji does have that Ink Portrait up. Actually have to commit quite a lot to just try and burst
Radiant's
it down.
bottom tower is under attack.
That's going to be a big factor, John. Like, against Medusa, it's not necessarily one of those heroes that you think about when you think of the Grimstroke Ink Portrait. It was rather tanky, I must say, and I suppose if it's left alone long enough, it will do a substantial amount of damage. Do you think maybe that's the key here for TNC?
Dire are scanning.
Definitely, it's going to be a big factor. You're always going to have a good
Radiant's
source of damage just
bottom
flying
tower
out.
is
This
under
one doesn't do
attack.
the most damage yet, but as he builds up on items, it's just going to work against him if he's not careful. So SMG has to be
Invisibility.
always sort of aware of where the Grimstroke's kind of positioning himself, of what he uses that Dark Portrait of. A Soulbind Dark Portrait would be really annoying. So look at that, Tim's just microing, cutting off the creep wave, preventing any push opportunities, clearing out the creep wave by himself. It's fun. Great hero.
It's balanced. Very balanced. TNC Look up, Arthur gonna run right into him, just break the smoke, but Armel gonna move forward with a nice stream call, catching out Moon. Are they gonna go after him on track? They'll try to focus in onto mid one, but mid one he's gonna be just fine. Instead they'll commit the egg, they'll continue to fly onto Arthur. Zeke will go down the pass, but now the fireback's there. Arthur, he wants to come back in and try and stop this team fight again as mid one. They'll go on to bot, they'll find the Dragon Knight, they'll take down the DK. So Armel, he's back in on the backside. He does kill off the ledge. Arthur, aim down Tim. Gabby,
Radiant's
trying to get
middle
the work
tower
with the
is
Hexes
under
out.
attack.
They've got the air spike as well. They might just have enough control to take down this TV. Or do they? He still has the Sunder. He'll get it off. He'll turn back around. It'll be a time back on Arthur. Now mid one. He needs to get out of there. Armel even finding Roddy in the backside.
Silence.
They do get the Medusa away.
Radiant's middle tower is under attack.
TNC. If they just prolong the team fight long enough, and this time around it does work out in their favor.
Radiant's middle tower has fallen.
Position was just on point. They put the DK all up front. Mid one's gonna have to shove this wave back by himself, which he can do. It's a Medusa. Can really split shot quite nicely and still really annoying to deal with for most of these heroes. But you're seeing the conditions come out for TNC. They're allowed to sustain with Boomy as long as his position's good for the Sunray. It's very hard to burst down these heroes. Even with that Scotty up on mid one, it's just a pain to still deal with all that heal coming through from the Phoenix. And the damage output of Gabby's just greater than Medusa right now with the itemization. Like Scotty's up, Dragonlance and DKB, but he's got the Crystallis, he's got the SNY for faster attack speed as well. Once you have the full Daedalus up on Gabby, as long as he's got Metamorphosis to play with, the Deuce is not going to feel great up front. And mid one's actually going for the MKB in sort of expectations of the butterfly for Gabby, but he's just not even bothering. So that MKB, the attack speed will be nice, but your true strike's not going to matter because you're kind of building a counter pick for an item that's not even coming out on this Terrorblade anywhere.
Well, I'm also concerned about what you pointed out earlier, John. The more damage items mid one gets, the more that Ink Portrait's going to do. With that MKB up, it's going to be a lot more painful for SMG to try and deal with that Ink Portrait coming out from Tim's. I'm a little bit concerned here for SMG as the game does go on. A 5k net worth lead now for TNC Predator. It's still a rather close game between the two, and could go anyway.
Money.
Feels like this game is going to be banking on the next Roshan, which is up, by the way. SMG already kind of posturing around it, getting the vision of that Roshan. So important for both teams to try and secure that second Roshan with the Aegis Cheese and Shards, and meanwhile he's already getting started. An Ink Portrait though, they've scouted out. You've also got that Daedalus now onto Gabby.
Dire are scanning.
SMG, play it safe, they'll back out of it.
It's a good call. They don't really have the best vision to take the Roche right now. No forward wards, the spot where TNC is. And TNC, well, they're under smoke right now. They could look to play into that high ground.
He does not want to be caught like this with the Sunray and the Dragon Tail right on top. Still, he's got the Stone Gates off in time, so he can try to back off and down the Soul Bind. Locking him down, look at the damage output. Gabby just rips in this fight. After the 1 second KP, he's gone. Arnold's got the backside. He'll kill off Rogi, and now Moon. He's going to try and run, but he has been left all by himself. They'll get him.
Your essence seeps.
Oh, what kind of damage was that from Gabby?
Daedalus, man. It's the
need to be like a shark.
itemization compared to the Dusa going for that
Roshan
MKB. It's
has
just not enough
fallen to
damage.
the
And it's not any more durability as well for the Dusa to stand and fight. It's just not panning out, and they have to put that Dusa up front as well. It's their tankiest hero.
Radiant's
The one that
bottom
can take all the
tower
hits.
is under
You don't really
attack.
want your Bloodseeker up front. And that just puts you at massive risk. They managed to get the initiation they want.
Radiant
I think they
structures are
kind of focused on
fortified.
Armel on the low
Radiant's
grounds, but they
bottom
didn't expect
tower
everyone
is
else to
under
swing
attack.
in from that southern ramp. You know, just kind of crossing. High ground under siege, Aegis Cheese, free ad
Radiant's
shard up.
middle tower is under
It's
attack.
really scary to fight into this. They don't
Radiant's
have
middle
Stone
tower
Gaze.
has fallen.
Seattle, they should be up by the time the respawn's there. But these objectives will not hold for
Radiant's
too long.
middle
They
barracks
won't
are
get
under
mid the
attack.
creeps up as the tier 2 top is still standing. With 2 lanes of racks down.
Radiant's bottom tower has
The
fallen.
Rax is down now for SMGs. The second does get taken by Gabby as we speak. Next side, gonna find out after. Great crawls there. They want to just take the tusk out of the teamfight immediately. They do break the coil.
Radiant's
He's still
bottom
right
barracks
behind
are
by
under
Fox.
attack.
Take him out. It's our food down with that buyback again. TNC.
Radiant's bottom barracks has fallen.
Secondary Rax, Gabby. He has the Aegis, but they're just all by now. In fact, they might just try to turn around and fight this. Rodney's already gone down. Now the sun around mid one.
Oh no.
He's dead without buyback.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's a disaster here, John. TNC.
Really hard.
Radiant's middle tower
The
is
team
under
falls
attack.
down. Rodney, he's trying to get something done with the finger out the dying arm. No, but he is still alive. Look at the face shift on. Down the limit of the turn. He will secure the kill, but doesn't matter. They are getting completely wiped and they call the GG. TNC. They just turn right back around and take game 3
Radiant's
off the
middle tower
side.
is under attack. Victory.
Looked really easy for a long time, and as we were talking about, it's like a coiled up spring. The tension just explodes. And it boiled down to a couple of things. The ags from the Grimstroke was really good, but the itemization coming out from mid 1 just didn't pan out. He expected the butterfly, he went for the MKB, his gambit just doesn't pay off, and TNC said it best at the end. They spammed out that voice line, patay, 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 they're all dead. SMG